The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Coming up on Perspectives, Kenya's film producer and missionary Jimmy Gore joins me next. Hear about his award-winning film, plus all the community work he's doing in East Kenya. That's coming up next on this edition of Perspectives with yours truly, Darren Jaime.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Let 'em know. Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference.
What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective?
And hello, everyone. I'm Darren Jaime, and welcome to another edition of Perspectives, and we are glad to have you. As always, Perspectives airs weekly here on BronxNet's Channel 67. If you want to catch us on Verizon Fios, that would be Channel 33, or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. We're certainly glad to have you here. And, of course, check us out on all our social media sites, my personal Facebook page, Darren C. Jaime. There you can get some news, some information, as well as some inspiration, and we'll get you real connected. I want to tell you, I've got a good friend and brother here with me. His film recently picked up 5 Kalasha Awards in 2019. Now, if you know what the Kalasha Awards are, well, the Kalasha Film and TV Awards is an annual award presented by Kenya Film Commission that strives to promote a vibrant film industry and recognize Kenya's own filmmakers. And we got a clip of his movie called Lost in Time, where actually it's a movie about mental illness. If you want to know about the Kalasha Awards, well, they're the equivalent to our Oscars. So the movie Lost in Time actually won 5 Kalasha Awards, which is the equivalent of like 5 Oscars. So we're going to take you to a little clip of Lost in Time.
Listen to the sound of my voice.
Try to be responsible.
Yes, sir.
Give him a break for once. He's really been trying of late.
Takes more than trying, Jude. You can be trusted.
Why don't you move in with us? There's nothing stopping you now that he's gone.
Ladies, welcome home.
How do I look, Daddy?
Like the smartest and the most beautiful girl in the new school.
Sifa, I brought something for you. And I have a bigger surprise, yeah? I made a room for you in my house.
Sam, what's going on?
There's something strange going on at Michael's place.
Rubbish, Sam.
Jude, I saw them yesterday dragging someone in. And Lillian was slapping the guy. I think she saw me, so I just ran. Where is Sifa?
With Lillian?
Get out of my way. I need to go in there.
I can't let you do that, Sam. I won't allow you to.
Where is Sifa?
You know where she is. You do.
We need to call the authorities.
Call the authorities and tell them what? That our friend and neighbor have our daughter.
Where's my little girl?
Well, as you saw, the movie actually debuted October 24th of 2019, and since then, as we said, multiple awards. Here to talk about the film Lost in Time is the executive producer, Jimmy Gore, and we also welcome you to the show, my friend and brother.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to have you, man.
Good to be here, man.
He's actually here all the way from Nairobi, Kenya, and so good to have you coming here and sharing with us.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So you've been a part of this tour of actually taking Lost in Time and sharing it with American audiences. It talks about the issue of mental illness, but for those people who may not know a little bit more about the movie, talk about the background about why you guys decided to go with Lost in Time.
Partly we've been doing short films for a while, short films. So this is actually a very fast feature film. How we come about with most of the projects that we do is that just in the context of trying to address contemporary issues, things that we see in our community, what's happening in the Kenyan context, and things that we feel we want to highlight. So most of the time we've been using films for community outreaches, have people discussing about different topics. So for us to have settled on the mental health agenda as it is, I think it was just because of the issues that we were already seeing that were happening in the society. One was actually more of a personal experience of one of our friends who is actually the scriptwriter for Film Lab Kenya, Eddie Joe Kihara. So what happened is that he has family, friends, neighbors who have boys who have challenges. Most of them actually you can't even clearly tell which condition it is. And so that's how bad it is, that we know we have people with health challenges and we can categorize, we are not sure what it is. And what happens in most of the Kenyan context is that you'd easily, hide them. And in some of the communities, like where I work in Northwest Kenya, and it's the same in almost all rural communities. If you have someone who has some kind of mental health challenge, you'd find them tied up or hidden, Nobody wants to talk about it. And so for us just needing to understand from Eddie Joe's experience what this is all about, and also him just seeing the kind of devastation that was going on in that family, we tried to think what happens to these people, what is their world like? And he was sharing of seasons when he'd come and he'd find the boys, yes, they're normal. And the other time you'd find, something is wrong. And so you'd want to think what actually goes on in his mind. So one of the things that we actually try to achieve in the film is to take people through the mind of someone with mental health challenge.
But how big is mental illness in Kenya? We know about it here in the United States. It's prevalent. A lot of people are dealing. But back home in Kenya, how big is mental illness?
When we were actually doing our research, we discovered that 1 out of every 4 Kenyans actually have a mental health challenge, one or the other. But it's actually highlighted more because of the suicide rates. That's been, going up and up and up. Right now in Kenya, they say every day at least 4 people commit suicide every day. And we see it all over the media, and those are just the ones that are covered in the media. I know for us even to decide to launch it on the 24th of October, which was like Mental Health Awareness Month in Kenya, and the focus was actually on suicide. And suicide has been major in Kenya. Every week, literally every other day, sometimes you'd find the news of someone who commits suicide. And some of the heartbreaking stories of someone who just wakes up in the night, kills his wife, kills his children, kills himself, and that we see it every other time. The police, they kill their bosses. A lot of shootings that are going on, and you wonder, definitely there's something that is wrong. And so for us, we felt we need to probably create a platform, because that's what we do, for people to talk about this.
Right. Yeah. Real quickly, the response that the movie's gotten, it's got a huge response. You got awards.
Yeah.
Were you surprised at the amount of reception that the movie got?
Yes, most definitely. But I think we had a good team. I really want to appreciate and acknowledge and shout out our team. LIT, we're calling ourselves LIT for Lost in Time. Great script. I think Eddie Joe just did, he outdid himself. Our director, Peter Kawa, the kind of perspectives that he actually brought to the film was quite unique, how to bring this actually to light. And the journey that we actually decided to take. So that is not, we didn't want to give it a documentary approach because that would be the easy way to go about it. Right. But let's tell somebody's story and someone who's struggling. And beyond that, let's get people into their mind. Whenever we are showing the screen, the film, what we say is that if you start watching it and you find you're lost, then we've achieved. Because you need to be in the mind of someone who sometimes you can't differentiate what reality is and what is not real. Wow. Then you'd appreciate.
All right. Jimmy Gore, executive producer of Lost in Time, a movie that aired in Kenya and has got national attention, national awards. Coming back, we're going to talk a little bit more with him about Lost in Time, then also the other work that he does as a missionary. We'll talk about that and more here on Perspectives. Back here on Perspectives, continuing our conversation with Jimmy Gore, who's the executive producer of the movie Lost in Time, all the way coming to us from Nairobi, Kenya. He's actually here as a part of his tour, screening and making more awareness about mental illness in Kenya. And you've been an ambassador for mental illness and awareness. What's been your response, here in the States since coming and talking about mental illness and bringing Lost in Time to these audiences?
We actually got the invitation because of a Kenyan actually who lives in New York who heard about the film and he saw all the accolades and he was like, this is something that we also need here, especially for the Kenyans in diaspora, specifically in the US. Mm-hmm. And when he was actually sharing the stories, all the challenges that they're also getting every other time of stories of suicides, depression. One of the stories he shared of was someone who was actually doing pretty well, quite well off in Kenya, came to the States and, you've come from what is considered a very prestigious university back home and your papers are actually not recognized. So you have to start off almost like his description was below scratch. So, you have to work hard and then now tried to build up everything, and with all the pressures that are, so he succumbed to depression, you know, and people back home would actually not know, and so he hides in his home, you know. So it's a story that is happening all over, and especially the stigma that is associated with it. For an African man, it becomes even a much bigger challenge, you know, in that context. So in our discussion was like, yeah, if you're helping to start conversations back home, we are the same people, and probably we are here at a place where it's even much more difficult because you are at a space where you're not really used to. This is not your natural setting, and so when you struggle and you don't have a strong support system, it becomes even much worse. So I think part of the conversations that we've been having is that there's need definitely to have a support system, you know. The first thing is always just to seek out help and have people who you can actually be with. So that's more or less been the campaign. Have people talk about it and have people come up with their own solutions of how to deal with it.
Amazing. I want to switch fronts a little bit. Talk a little bit not just about the movie, but also the other work that you do. You know, you're a missionary. You work with Christian Impact Mission. I've had the opportunity of actually, you know, I met you before with Mercy Masika, and we had the opportunity to interview you here before, and to get a chance to see your work out in Kenya, where you actually are doing some great work, building schools, and also building schools, and not just building schools, but also changing lives. Talk a little bit about that work.
First, to thank you for honoring our invitation. I remember we actually posted it in the show, and it was like a joke, but you responded and you came, you know. That was pretty exciting. I love what I do in terms of the mission work. Just seeing lives transform, I think for me that's the biggest calling that you can ever have. A journey of walking people towards knowing who they are, you know, and understanding that God has actually given them every resource that they need to be able to make their lives better. And so that for me has actually been the journey. So we work in East Pokot. That's in northwestern Kenya, one of the most deprived community in so many ways, marginalized. It's conflict prone, so not many people would want to go there to serve, whether it's non-profits, whether even the government itself, you know, they'd not want to go there.
And for people who don't know where East Pokot is, we fly into Nairobi, and then we drove to East Pokot. East Pokot is like, what, 8 hours driving?
8 hours driving. So we went there, of course, at the invitation of this community, and we went and we saw all the need there. And the fact that we actually stepped in there, we were almost considered like, you know, the government. For them, we were the answer to everything. So whether it's education, whether it's health, you know, whether it's food and agriculture and everything. So that became our life. So one of the things that we've actually committed to as we serve in that community is to help them to transform their lives. We say we help them to help themselves. That's ideally our goal. It's an empowerment program that first of all is highly pegged on our model that we call the mindset change and empowered worldview model. The empowered worldview is just about how do you view yourself, how do you view your environment, because most of the time our culture has brought us to a place of dependency. And one of the things that we've realized in most of our African communities, where people would come maybe from the West as non-profits, when they get into the community without a proper understanding of the community values and the community experiences, it's easy to bring in support that would ideally work negatively instead of helping the community. And so for us is to work with the community to build their capacity and build their own value for them to understand that I am not just someone who receives, I have what it takes. So,
And so you're building schools, water system, housing, all these things that you're actually doing for the residents of East Pokot, and we had an opportunity to see that. But I wanted to, and I know they want me to go to break, but I'm going to try to get this question in, and we'll see how it flows. But you mentioned before the government itself doesn't even want to be involved, and the government doesn't even come up there. Explain that a little bit more.
I think because of the conflicts, one of the things that you'll understand about that culture when you get there is that from boys' initiation, you become a warrior. So it's not even just a man, it's a warrior. So when the boys get circumcised at 9 and they literally go to stay in the bush, and you have a gun, you have your arrows and all that. So in that context, there's a time when the government was doing an operation for disarmament, and they went in there. 42 soldiers were actually killed by these Pokots. And the story is there were actually less than 5 Pokots who actually did this, because in their context, that's the environment, that's where they thrive.
Right.
So no one can actually come. So with those kinds of stories, even the government itself fears working in that kind of region.
Right, let me take a quick break. Got more with Jimmy Gore. We'll return with more here on Perspectives. Back here, continuing our conversation with Jimmy Gore, who's here talking about the movie Lost in Time, executive producer, but also sharing a little bit about the missionary work that he does and influencing the lives in East Pokot out in Kenya, and continue to do great work. But what do you want people to know about Kenya, and particularly maybe because we had this conversation before that perspective is different. United States sees one thing. You guys see us in a totally different way. But what do you want people to know about Kenya and what's going on over there now?
I'd speak for Kenya and probably a lot more communities in Africa. We have a lot of potential. We have a lot of resources. I think that's known all over. But I think one of the things in terms of interventions and support that would actually come from the West, the best that can ever be is a focus on partnerships and a focus on building capacity. Because I think many people would want to come and give aid in terms of relief, but aid is never a solution. Whenever you give aid, it's like it devalues, when you're always someone who is on the receiving end. And that's the kind of work that we try to do in the communities. And we've been trying to champion it also among the development agents and non-profits. That when you come into a community, you need to understand that you're coming to partner with people who are already on a journey, people who already have vision and they have their own needs that we need to partner. So ours is always a call to partnership my invitation has always been as it was, come and see. And in seeing, we say come and serve, the acronym C, come and serve, come and experience, come and explore. There are always opportunities both to serve and also to invest, because I think that's the greatest value. that you can actually invest in the lives of people and partner with them towards making their lives better.
And so, what would you classify as like maybe the most immediate need right now, even for the people that you serve?
Where we serve currently, we are having a lot of focus in education, especially for the children, because as I shared earlier about the story of the young boys who become warriors, the only solution to that place is to break the cycle. And for us to break the cycle is to have the boys in school and have the girls in school. One of the things that is sad about that particular community is that it's a cycle of poverty, a cycle of violence that has everyone involved. So the young girls will be married off very early, and it's because probably the father wants, goats to come in as dowry. The young boys will become warriors and go raid. Cattle rustling is a very common thing there. Why? Because they want cattle. So ours is to break that cycle, take them to school, and also introduce alternatives. And in terms of intervention, that's what we've been doing, helping to support the schools, but also having capacity building programs on different alternative livelihood options.
I would be remiss if I didn't talk about this. You have another program that you work with called agripreneurship. Explain.
It's a focus on value addition. When you work with the community, there are basic things that are needed. They say water is life, so the first thing is actually water. So our focus is on water security, move on to food security. Once you have food security, we have an intervention that focuses on wealth creation, and the bulk of it is value addition to the agricultural produce, and that's agripreneurship, so that you can think of agriculture not just as for food, but also thinking about it for income. So market-led agriculture, that's a strong part of agripreneurship, but also on value addition. So in our model program in Yata, which is in Eastern Kenya, which you also visited, we have farmers who are involved in sweet potato farming. And beyond just doing that for their food and for the market, we actually have a bakery that now produces orange flesh sweet potato flour, and we make bread out of sweet potato flour. So they have ready market, and we also sell together outside of the community.
So much going on. We got to bring you back.
Yeah.
Glad to have you here in the States.
Glad to be back.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to being back many more times.
Well, thank you so much, Jimmy Gore, coming sharing with us. Jimmy Gore is the executive producer of Lost in Time, a movie taking place out of Kenya. The Kalasha Awards have won 5. That's the equivalent of like the Oscars here. And continues to do great work, and not just on the film set, but also in the field, working in Pokot, also in Yata, and to all those who are watching over there in Nairobi and to Kenya. God bless you. Good to see you on this side. Hopefully we'll get a chance to come back and see you sometime soon. Jimmy Gore, our guest here on Perspectives. That about wraps up on this edition of Perspectives. I'm Darren Hyman. Thanks for sharing. And guess what? Share your perspective with somebody else you just don't know. It might make a difference in somebody else's life. Take care.
Let 'em know.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
Express what's on your mind. What's on your mind?
Let 'em know. Anything relevant to life,